And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents, and welcome back to my channel. A couple weeks ago, I did a review of an interview between Adam Lane Smith and I believe her name was Jamie Henshaw, on a podcast where they supposedly debunked the red pill. And during that video, Adam Lane Smith mentioned that prior to that interview, he had made his own video more or less summarizing his criticisms of the red pill. And I said at the time that eventually when I would get to debunking that video directly. Well, seeing as I had a number of topics to cover on my show this week, none that particularly stood out to me, though, so I figured as good as time as any to go back and review Adam Lane Smith's personal red pill debunking as he saw it on his channel. Now, I do notice before we got started here, follower by the name of Lights asked if I still do libertarian commentary, and the answer to that is yes. Although, as I'm sure you've noticed, I've been doing a lot of red pill content lately. And just to reemphasize why that is, again, the reason is I think one of the greatest inhibitors to a free society is the fact that we have fewer and fewer traditional families that are raising stable, healthy children that can actually function in a free society. And part of the reason for that is because of government meddling in the institution of marriage to severely disincentivize it for men and effectively give all the power to women. Of course, feminism being one of the primary engines through which government has grown its power. But until such time as those incentives are fixed and we get the state out of marriage, it's more likely that this dysfunctional feminist society we've built that has totally discouraged marriage and the forming of traditional families is going to result in more and more dysfunctional adults that vote for larger government and vote for giving more power to government. And thus, feminism and the issues that the red pill points out are at the very core of what it's going to take to turn society away from statism and towards libertarianism. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. Before we get started, though, I will remind everyone, so for those that didn't already watch the video with Adam Lane Smith and Jamie Henshaw, before I start any one of these videos, I just want to be clear. Within what is called the red pill, there are many various communities. You've got the pickup artist communities, PUAs. You have men going your own way, MGTOW. You have the black pill community. You have the incel community, and all these other communities that, broadly speaking, would consider themselves part of the red pill. But accepting the red pill does not mean you are necessarily a part of any one of those communities. The red pill simply means you accept a simple truth that exists in two statements, one that applies to men, one that applies to women. Point number one, men are naturally polygamous and absent moral, legal, or societal restraints. They tend to pursue whatever sexual strategy will allow them to have sex with the highest number of women available. Point number two, women are naturally hypergamous and absent moral, legal, and societal restraints tend to pursue whatever male is considered highest status to them, both in the sense that they will give them the most superior offspring and that they will be able to provide for them materially and provide them safety and security. In doing so, they generally only pursue the highest value male available, while at the same time always leaving open the possibility of transferring their loyalties to a higher status male if such a male becomes available. That is all the red pill is, recognizing those two truths. Now, how does that apply to our modern society? Well, basically, despite those things being true, in an unregulated state of nature, a man's natural polygamous drive has certain consequences, and a female's natural hypergamous drive also has certain consequences. Therefore, when men and women come together and pursue a sexual relationship, the worst aspects of male and female nature tend to cancel each other out, and the natural result is a compromise of monogamy, or the traditional family, a man, a woman, and children. However, the modern state has done everything it possibly can to remove all the natural consequences for the woman through government intervention, while amplifying the consequences for men, such that if and when men and women get married, women have virtually no consequences for following their natural hypergamy, whereas men have even greater consequences for following their natural polygamous strategy. So with that in mind, let's see how Adam Lane Smith here is going to critique the red pill, and does he understand it?
What if you're ruining your own dating chances and you don't realize it? What if you think you're safe, but you're actually walking into a nightmare divorce trap? By the end of this video, You're going to understand one of the deadliest dating traps catching men and how it's ruining lives, even as it seems to save them. You'll also know how to avoid this trap and help others who get sucked in. The topic today is the red pill and how it's hurting men, even as it claims to save them. This insidious ideology is based on flawed assumptions that ruin your chances at happiness. But the people
Okay, so before we get too far into it, so he's saying the red pill is detrimental and harmful to men. And remember what the red pill is. I just explained it. And is he actually going to refute either of those points about men and about women?
who support it will tell you it's your only hope and that you must follow it or face ultimate ruin.
Okay, and on that point, you don't really follow the red pill per se. Again, there are communities that utilize the red pill to pick up artists, MGTOW, black pill, incels, whatever else that might have various prescriptions for how they think men should behave. But strictly speaking, the red pill doesn't tell you what you should or shouldn't do. It's simply about understanding male and female nature and acting accordingly. Now, different communities are going to disagree about how you should respond. But strictly speaking, the red pill doesn't prescribe a course of action. It's just a description of how men and women tend to behave.
I'm here to tell you that's complete bull, and I'll show you the right way, the one that they fear. So buckle up and let's debunk the red pill once and for all. Welcome back to my channel, where I show you how to make love happen on your terms. I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist, and I make relationships better. Most guys today are terrified of becoming another divorce statistic and losing all their hard-earned money, and I totally get that. Other guys...
Okay, so he totally gets it. He agrees that as a man in today's society, thanks to no-fault divorce, if you get married, you inherently take on the risk of divorce. It's not an unfounded fear, according to him, so what's his solution?
Guys can't get a date at all, and they turn to online dating gurus to help them figure out how to find love. I've helped thousands of these men achieve real results, but for every guy who learns the truth, 10 more get taken by charlatans. I want to make sure that does not happen to you. Let's dive in right now and show you how to avoid this cult that wants to keep you trapped in fear forever. Now, to understand the threat, you need to know the facts. What is the red pill and why is it so attractive? The red pill...
Yeah, let's see what he says here.
...has been around for a long time, at least by internet standards. Some people place the official year of its start in 2012 when the subreddit was formed, but the idea has been around a lot longer than that. The name is drawn from the Matrix film, when Morpheus offers Neo the blue pill to go back in the Matrix.
Oh dear, we got an ad. Hang on. On that note, he is correct that, well, not so bad of an ad. Hang on. On that note, he is correct. The term red pill came from the film The Matrix, in that it was meant to represent, in The Matrix, taking the blue pill represents accepting the comfortable lie, whereas taking the red pill represents seeing the truth as it is. But again, the act of taking the red pill just shows Neo the truth. It doesn't by itself tell him what he's supposed to do. And that's the case here with the red pill when it comes to male and female nature. The red pill, accepting the red pill, is about accepting the way men and women really are, and how society and government interacts with that. Strictly speaking, it's not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but it is the truth of the matter, and he claims he's going to debunk the red pill.
Matrix and hide from the truth, or the red pill to learn the truth. Initial leaders in the red pill movement were angry at the growing unfairness of modern life toward men in today's family courts, in divorce courts, in legal proceedings, and virtually everywhere else. The truth is that their initial complaints are largely valid. Men are just...
Okay, so he agrees that men's rights activists, another early group within what has come to be called the red pill, were largely correct in their assessment. Divorce is a huge risk for men. Because of no-fault divorce, a woman can divorce you for just about any reason, and she's highly likely to be granted full custody of your children, child support and alimony payments for life, 50% split of marital assets, and you will have little to no legal recourse. I'm just pointing out, before we get too far, he is admitting that the early MRAs, most of their critiques of how family law is set up, biased in favor of women and to the detriment of men. He is not disputing that.
discriminated against in a variety of settings. Women do have more rights than men in many places, including custody default settings and family courts. Society does encourage women while spitting on men.
Okay, so you agree with that. But are you going to agree then that in today's day and age, men should be extremely wary of getting married, especially given all those risks? Wouldn't that follow naturally that if there are in fact all these risks to getting married, men should take a increased risk assessment towards marriage that they perhaps did not have to do in prior societies? Would you agree with that? Because it sounds like no later on in his video.
I experienced a ton of these issues myself growing up in California, which, by the way, got the modern crazy decades before the rest of you were facing it. I've been there, I grew up in it, and I experienced many of the issues that the initial Red Pill founders were concerned about it. So I totally get it. I absolutely do. I've lived it. This is not a video to tell you that men have it easy and everything is great.
Okay, what is it then?
Threats are problems, and they are real. That's what makes Red Pill ideology specifically so insidious. It takes a real problem and then turns those sufferers into perpetual victims who need the ideology to feel safe. Only this cult can protect. Does that sound like anything else?
No, not only this cult can protect you. And again, it's not a cult. Now, are there many communities that function like a cult? I mean, he shows pictures of Andrew Tate, which is one of the worst exemplars of the Red Pill, in my opinion. Yes, followers of Tate are in a cult. His community functions exactly like a cult. I, for one, am not telling anyone what they should or shouldn't do with this information. What I am saying is these risks exist. Marriage right now is a huge risk to men in modern society. And unless and until that is fixed, the rational course of action is to either avoid marriage entirely or only get married if you've found a woman that you have vetted extensively and that you have worked together with her to put legal guards in place as much as impossible to lessen those risks of divorce. I talked about this in my recent podcast that I did with Night Shift 10,000, responding to Ben Shapiro. I explained it in the previous podcast, refuting Adam Lane Smith and Jamie Henshaw. But again, just because you can point to one guy like Andrew Tate who functions like a cult does not mean that the ideology itself means everyone who accepts that is in a cult. And by the way, I should point out, Adam Lane Smith, go to his website right now. He's selling a dating course for $500. And his counseling services are more expensive than that. So I could just as easily accuse him of saying he's running a cult. He just wants people to throw money at him. He wants them to believe they have problems so that they throw money at him. Is that true? I don't know. But he clearly is financially interested in people accepting his point of view. So does that mean he's in a cult?
World? Anything you might be scared of? Who is the enemy in this case? Well, everybody. Primarily every woman who has ever lived or will ever live. And then any men who support women or who encourage women or who even love a woman. Even loving your own daughter places you in total danger and makes you a simp.
That is ridiculous. There is no one in the Red Pill that is saying loving a woman inherently at all makes you a simp or that women everywhere are the enemy. No, what the Red Pill is saying is all women are affected by an inherent hypergamous drive, just like all men are impacted by an inherent polygamous drive. Any good father teaches his daughter about a man's natural polygamous drive. Any good father teaches his son about a woman's natural hypergamous drive. And he doesn't say, therefore, all women are your enemy, therefore, all men are your enemy. What he says is, all men are affected by this. Therefore, when you evaluate them as a potential marriage partner, you need to take that into account, and especially take it into account if we live in a society that has laws and state intervention put in place specifically to remove the consequences of one gender's nature and amplify the consequences of another gender's nature. This is just this idea that the Red Pill teaches you to view all women as your enemy is ridiculous. No, they're not all your enemy. You just need to understand they're not sugar and spice and everything nice either. Women are not all good and men are not all evil, as modern feminism teaches us. The answer is both men and women are self-interested and have natural drives that affect how they make decisions. You need to understand this, especially in light of the cultural and government backdrop.
Or a blue pillar. Now, why are women a threat under the red pill ideology? Most often, it's because the founders of the ideology target extreme examples, like women with the harshest personality disorders who abuse others and exploit their own loved ones for personal benefit. These awful women form their image of all women.
Okay, that's fair. And a lot of these shows like Fresh and Fit and Andrew Tate, they will look some of the worst examples of female hypergamy and some of the worst examples of men getting screwed. But tell me, is that any different than these feminist podcasts who, when talking about how horrible men are, they'll find the worst abusers, the worst criminals out there, cases where women were just treated absolutely poorly, and then try and say that all men are like that? I mean, just look at the Me Too, the hashtag Me Too phenomenon that came about a couple of years ago. Initially, that was brought about by Harvey Weinstein. And I happen to think, yes, the evidence was presented. Harvey Weinstein was abusing his power and mistreating women with his position of power. But because of that one situation, Harvey Weinstein, the movement then evolved to basically say that all men everywhere are abusers and should be assumed to be abusers until they prove otherwise, guilty until proven innocent. So, I mean, and this is not unique to just pointing out that sometimes we review that red pill creators review the worst examples does not mean that's not unique to the red pill. That's something feminists do. It's something people of all ideologies do. And just to say that because they look at the worst examples are sometimes the best ways to teach about how hypergamy works. It doesn't mean that all men and all women under all circumstances act in accordance with their natural polygamous or hypergamous drives. This is an example I used in my last debunking of Adam Lane Smith and Jamie Henshaw. Do all men inevitably follow their polygamous drive to have sex with multiple women, even if they're married? No, they don't. Men are individuals. Women are individuals. People can and do make decisions as individuals that are not inevitably driven by their biology. But here is what is true. A loyal married man who loves his wife and is loyal to her and his children, if they are at the beach one day and an extreme gorgeous young woman in a bikini walks in front of him who is not his wife, will he inevitably, right that moment, stand up right in front of his wife, jump on that woman, and have his way with her? No, that will not inevitably happen. What will inevitably happen is he will feel an innate desire on some level to have sex with that attractive woman that he's looking at. Now, he will not certainly and under all circumstances do that, in particular because there are probably going to be some pretty harsh consequences if he does. But the point is, the nature is still part of him, and he still feels that desire even if he doesn't act on it. In the same way, when red pill content creators look at some of the worst examples of hypergamy, they're not saying all women everywhere will always do this exact thing to you. What they're saying is all women everywhere are affected by this same hypergamous drive. And notice that because we live in a society where government has done everything it can to remove the consequences for the woman, all women are on some level more likely to do this to you in the society in which we currently live. And therefore, if you're thinking about getting into a long-term relationship, if you're thinking about getting married, you must be aware of this and do a full risk assessment. That is all we're saying.
So the founders claim every single woman on Earth has a severe personality disorder and sociopathic tendencies lurking just beneath the surface.
No, I just explained. That's false. All women do not have severe personality disorders. All women are affected by the same hypergamous drive, and living in the society that we do, that is something you must be aware of. Now, if you see signs that she has a personality disorder, the risk is even higher. So be wary of that.
Many of them argue that women are fundamentally incapable of love and that they are more or less sexual livestock who need to be managed and kept.
Okay, that's not what the red pill says either. Women are not capable of love, but women love differently than men do. A woman cannot, and the love a woman has for a man, romantic love, it is not like the love that a mother has for a child or that a husband has for a wife. Men and women love differently. And because of a woman's natural hypergamous nature, she cannot continue to love a man who provides no value to her, be that through offspring or providing protection and security. Remember, on a base level, a woman is attracted to a man for two reasons. One, because she believes he'll provide her genetically superior offspring, and two, because he'll provide her safety and security and allow her to live as comfortably as possible. If a man can do neither of those things for a woman, then on a deep biological level, a woman cannot be attracted to him and is going to, and the less value he provides in that regard, the less attracted to him she will be. In that way, women are fundamentally incapable of loving men in unconditional fashion, as they might try to convince you otherwise.
Fear springs from what the red pill community doesn't understand: attachment theory. Sounds familiar because I teach it. Men with nice tendencies, what we call anxious attachment style, find women with severe problems to serve them and hopefully get their needs met. But these women are fundamentally broken, and they will not treat them fairly or faithfully. When these men get hurt, obviously, they find other men with similar stories, and they create an echo chamber where everyone they know now has been betrayed by similar sorts of women. In time, they comfort themselves by saying all women are evil. I did nothing wrong.
Okay, no. Yes, nice guy syndrome is a huge problem in our society. Why? Because we've been raised in a society where government-run schools that are using curriculum that were written by feminist professors have essentially taught men in a actually guarantees they're going to grow up to have nice guy syndrome. What does the modern public school teach men and women about relationships? They teach you women are sugar and spice and everything nice. Men are inherently violent and need to more like women if they want to be accepted. And if you as a man want to be accepted by a woman, the best thing you can do is ally yourself to female causes and do nice things for women, and women will reward you for it. Well, the reality is no. Women are not attracted to men because they ally themselves with female causes and do nice things for them. Women are on a base level only attracted to men for one of two reasons. They either believe that they're going to help them procure genetically superior offspring, or they believe they're going to help them procure safety, security, and comfortable lifestyle through provisioning and resources. It really doesn't matter. Now, could doing nice things for a woman be part of that in some fashion? Sure. But there is no guarantee that if you just do nice things for women, they will reward you in turn. That's correct. Men realize this, and who realize this don't necessarily come to the conclusion that all women are fundamentally evil. What the conclusion you should draw is romantic relationships are at their core transactional in nature. You need to understand, what value do you provide a woman, but most importantly, what value does she provide to you? Because the feminist public schools have taught us that women are valuable just because they are women, and any man should feel grateful to be able to serve her and give her what she wants, whether he gets a reward or not. Well, the fact of the matter, as he just pointed out, is women don't see you in this fashion. So why should you see them in this fashion? If women on a base level only want a romantic relationship with you because of what you can provide for them, you should not be guilted into wanting a romantic relationship with them. And incidentally, I've seen a lot on X lately of these supposedly traditional conservative women who are calling men cowards for not wanting marriage. The only reason a man wouldn't want to find a girl and get married is because he's a coward. He's shying away from his responsibility. Really? I mean, if marriage provides no tangible benefits to modern men, and in fact comes with great risks, why should he want to do it? For you? That sounds pretty selfish to me.
It was women, and that's the reason. And their leaders encourage this. I've met some of the leaders in the Red Pill community. I know some of them. Behind the scenes, things have not been good and usually are not good. I'm thinking back even 10 years ago, 10 years ago, there was one man named Roosh V who wrote all kinds of articles online about things like this. He has since completely disavowed everything he ever wrote and is going backwards on it and disavows all of this stuff he wrote. Now,
really, he disavows all the stuff he wrote. I'd like a citation for that. If anyone wants to look into Roosh's content and find somewhere where he says, I disavow everything, I'd love to see that.
Does he disavow maybe the evolutionary psychology pieces? We'll talk about that.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, the evolutionary psychology pieces are really all the Red Pill is. Now, from there, do we launch into the pickup artist community? Yes, and I would say most of the charlatans and sleaziness he talks about comes from the pickup artist community. These people who say, okay, now that you understand the Red Pill, give me tons of money and I'll teach you how to get all the women you want. Those guys are frauds. And in fact, I dare say any dating coach who is charging you hundreds or even thousands of dollars with the promise of relationship success is almost certainly a fraud. Now, bear in mind, Adam Lane Smith is such a coach, charging $500 for a dating course. So do with that what you will. But the evolutionary psychology, he says, that Roosh doesn't necessarily disavow, that at the core is the red pill.
All of this, have endless sex and prey upon people. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
Okay, have endless sex and prey upon people. That is not the red pill, strictly speaking. That is the pickup artist community. Now, if you want criticizing the pickup artist community, I will gladly join you in doing that. But that is not the red pill. And I feel like, especially amongst traditional conservatives and supposedly non-feminists on the right, who, make no mistake, they're just as feminist as the others, to include this Mr. Lane Smith here, there is this concerted effort to conflate the entire red pill sphere, to include MGTOW, which I consider myself part of, as being endorsing of or part of the pickup artist community. And that's just a lie. And usually a good sign that someone is telling a lie is when they try to take a particular extreme group within a larger ideology and smear everyone else as adhering to this, which is why a lot of these red pill criticisms, whether it's coming from Shapiro or Lane Smith or any of these others, they'll try to take two of the worst examples, Pearl and Andrew Tate, and basically say that is the red pill, all the while ignoring there are plenty of other creators within that sphere, none of which who aren't, many of which who aren't as popular, but mostly because they don't say things as ridiculous or drive around in Bugattis and smoke cigars all the time.
And some of the leaders are realizing that what they've done, absolutely intolerable. Over time, what this fosters in these men who fall into this red pill trap is not healing or secure attachment. What happens is they bring in anxious men and they switch them from anxious attachment style to avoidant attachment style. It makes it so they cannot connect to others, and they pathologically distrust all human beings outside of the cult. This is aimed primarily at women and those who support them, who created those initial wounds. Many of these men are still seething against their own mothers for not giving them the love that these men craved as children. It's attachment. Now, by switching these men...
Okay, I'm not going to diagnose the psychology of most men within the red pill movement. I would just like to point out this. A lot of criticism of the red pill points to the fact that many men who red pill tell their stories when they were hurt, whether that was by their mother, their ex-girlfriend, their ex-wife. They were hurt in some way, and that's what initially led them to the red pill. Now, that may be true, but strictly speaking, identifying how someone comes to hold a particular view says absolutely nothing about whether or not that view is actually true. This is what we call the genetic fallacy, which is identifying how a person came to believe something, and therefore acting like by identifying how this person came to believe something, that belief is therefore false. You came to believe the red pill, men's have a polygamous nature, women have a hypergamous nature. You only came to believe that because you were hurt by your mother, you were hurt by your girlfriend, you were hurt by your ex-wife. You know what? That could be true. Strictly speaking, how a person comes to the truth, though, has nothing to do with whether or not that belief is actually true. So go on and on all you want about how hurt red pill men, or take the more common smear. All men in the red pill are incels. Go look at X, and especially women criticizing the red pill, these trad thoughts who call men cowards for not wanting marriage. They are very fond of saying, if you accept the red pill, you're an incel. Ha 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 ha. Well, strictly speaking, again, suppose that were true. Suppose every man who accepts this also happens to be an involuntary celibate. That in of itself would not have any effect on whether or not the belief is actually true. And further, are you saying you would accept that the red pill is true if all those men came forward with receipts proving that they've had sex before and they're not actually incels? Of course not. And Adam Lane Smith's not going to accept that either. So it just goes to show this is just a diversion. How people come to the truth has nothing to do with whether or not it's actually true.
Anxious attachment style to avoidant attachment style. The red pill ideology thereby changes the women they're going to attract. Where the anxious men used to pull in women with personality disorders who would control them and then betray them, these men are now avoidant, and they attract crushingly insecure and approval-seeking women who will do anything to feel loved. And I mean...
Now, I happen to agree with him here. If what we're talking about is the pickup artist community, and within the pickup artist community, the goal that they teach men is generally how to get women, how to have sex with as many women as you possibly can, the good, the bad, or the ugly. And this they teach you to seek out women who are more likely to have casual sex or have sex early on in a relationship. These women probably do have psychological issues they're dealing with, which is why they're more likely to do this. Now, but I can't help but point out, nothing happens without a woman's consent. So although we can comment on whether or not it is moral for men to behave this way and try to seek these kind of women out to have as much sex as possible, the fact remains women are the gatekeepers of sex, in as much as there has never, ever been a society in the history of the world where there weren't lots of men who, given the opportunity, would have liked to have had lots of sex with lots of different women. Women, on the other hand, are the ones that choose whether or not to give it up. So in a society where women, by and large, are emotionally stable, particularly they were raised by a loving mother and father who taught them how to behave properly, and they've been taught and stick to their guns in that they are not going to have sex until marriage. In a society like that, where 95% of women or more are absolutely committed to no sex before marriage, pickup artists wouldn't exist. Pickup artists can only exist because there is a very large amount of women in society who are in fact broken, as he describes, and do in fact consent to sex with men like this. So blame the men all you want. The fact is, these men wouldn't exist unless there was an extremely large segment of the female population, or at least large enough for these men to get away with it, that pickup artists can even succeed. So point the finger at men if you want. They're just exploiting the situation with this, which is there are a lot of women in today's day and age, thanks to feminist curriculum and breaking apart of the traditional family, mind you, that are willing and to have sex before marriage and have casual sex with many different men. So long as women like that exist, pickup artists like this will thrive. Blame the men if you want to. It's not going to change until women actually make a change.
In anything. These men now use their skills of manipulation, which they call game, it's a game to them, to emotionally coerce insecure women into sex on their terms.
Okay, and coerce. Like, he uses this word like it's force. Again, nothing happens without a woman's consent. You can say, is there anything else, any other time where we would take this seriously? Salesmen, people who work in sales, their job is to sell products. They learn many of the same tactics that pickup artists are using. If your job is to sell products, whether you work at a dealership and sell cars, whether you work at Walmart and sell, basic everyday products, your goal is to try and get customers to buy as much of what you're selling as possible. And in doing so, they will use manipulative tactics to try and get you to purchase. Now, would we take anyone seriously if they bought a car and afterwards they regretted it and said, that salesman coerced me, he emotionally manipulated me into buying this car? Well, I mean, maybe he did, but the truth is it was still your decision and nothing would have happened without your consent. In the same way, these evil pickup artists are emotionally manipulating, coercing these women into having sex. It's so evil. Now, we can talk about whether or not having premarital sex is moral. We can talk about whether or not the tactics these men are using is moral. At the end of the day, it's not happening unless the women consent to it. They have no one to blame but themselves.
They call it spinning plates when the men juggle multiple women at a time, and they use those women's fear of abandonment against them to keep them on the sexual hook. The women will accept just about...
All right, another lad.
Oh no. Oh no.
Any poor sexual treatment or shameful sexual encounters just to prevent their worst fears from happening.
And again, are these women being forced at gunpoint to stay in relationships with these bad men? Well, it's funny, but there's a trend I have noticed, and that is that women, the men they complain about as being total jerks, no matter how horrible these men treat them, women tend to go back to these same men. Men who, I worked in a hospital for a little while, and I saw women that were brought in for actual cases of domestic abuse where they were physically harmed. And I've been standing in the room with a police officer begging this woman to make a report and file criminal charges against her husband. The women, and bear in mind, I don't believe all claims of abuse are immediately valid, but these are cases where the wounds are right in front of me. I believe this woman was actually harmed. In those cases, those women almost never actually report their husbands. They willingly go back to them, which is why I'm always inherently skeptical of women who boldly speak out about how their husbands abuse them. Again, you can say it's just my anecdotal evidence, do with that what you will. But it seems to me women who are legitimately being mistreated by men tend to always go back to those men and never turn them in. On the other hand, the supposedly nice guys that they say they want are the ones they cheat on with those bad men. Now, you can argue whether or not all women do that. No, not to say all women do that, but it just goes to show women have an inherent nature. There are certain things that tend to attract women to men. And yes, women who have not been raised properly, women who have psychological issues from being raised in a home without a father, from having feminist garbage shoved down their throats from the time they were children, they are more susceptible to these pickup artist tactics. It doesn't mean that these pickup artists force them into it. Nothing happens without their consent. And if it does, they have every right to go to the police, file actual criminal charges. Yet, strangely, in many of these cases where women actually are being abused, they never do. They willingly go back to these men.
A lot of women who have wild sexcapades, it's usually because they were trying to keep a boyfriend from leaving them, and he pushed them into doing things like this to try to keep her off.
Yeah, push them. Again, she's the one who chooses to stay in that relationship. She can't blame him.
Or to be the most interesting girl. The race to the bottom to be the most interesting is usually to appeal to avoidant men. And these men use tactics like love bombing to instill chemical hormonal addictions in the women with that oxytocin bonding that preys upon their greatest needs from childhood. You act upon their childhood wounds to continue making them.
Making them. He keeps using this language like a man is forcing a woman to do this. You know what? Maybe they are using tactics that are meant to manipulate in this fashion. Doesn't mean the women don't consent to it and don't have the ability to say no. And further, here's something that really is a pet peeve of mine. On one hand, feminists try and say women are strong and independent. They don't need men making their decisions for them. They can make their own decisions. Yet when women make their own decisions and it blows up in their face, it's always the fault of bad men who just took advantage of them. You're essentially saying women are too stupid to recognize bad men, and they're too inherently stupid and unable to take themselves from a bad situation and put themselves in a good situation. What does that really say about your belief about women? That they ought to have all the decision-making capacity of an adult, but be treated like children. And that's pretty much feminism in a nutshell. Women have all the authority, all the freedom of choice, but none of the responsibility.
With them, then you throw them aside, the next woman and injure her. This is how red pill ideology turns weak and injured men into predators who act upon weak and injured women.
Call them predators if you want. Again, they're not using, by and large, they're not using force. If they are, they're going to end up in prison, or unless, of course, the woman refuses to report them. And stop treating women like they're children. Women have the ability to make their own decisions. The sexual revolution fought to give women the right to have premarital sex with men whenever they wanted to and not get shamed for it. Great. You got the freedom. Now live with the consequences.
Goal of red pill is to live a life of total hedonism forever, or at very best.
That's not the goal of the red pill. That's the goal of the pickup artist community. And, believe what you want about them. I don't consider myself a part of them, but they could not exist if there were not a sufficient supply of the female population willing to have premarital sex.
To harness these sexual livestock to enjoy your life, get babies from her, and keep her under total control out of fear forever. They're encouraged to run dread game on their wife, where they make her feel she could be abandoned or cheated on at any moment if she doesn't comply with his demands in a timely manner. Fear runs every relationship. And if she shows any backbone at all, these men are told to abandon her in favor of an easier sexual conquest.
Okay, that may be dread game, as he calls it. That may be a tactic some men use in a relationship. The fact that dread game works shows a greater truth, that being in any relationship, the relationship only lasts so long as one part, whatever party in the relationship, the man or the woman, needs the other the most, has all the power in the relationship. If a woman truly believes she needs a man more than he needs her, then she will comply with his demands. If a man truly believes he needs a woman more than she needs him, he will comply with her demands. Now, as an individual, it's up to you to decide how badly you need a relationship. But if you stay in a relationship when the other party is giving you ultimatums, all that does is prove that you believe that you need them more than they need you. Is that true? That's something only you as an individual can decide. But that's how all relationships work.
And they high five when they do this. The red pill sounds so convincing to these men because parts of it are just basic evolutionary psychology, which is what they began with. It says that our ancestors survived by adapting in advantageous ways. I've taught about this a lot. Social psychology really embraces evolutionary teaching.
So you accept the red pill then. You accept that on a primal level, men are naturally polygamous and women are naturally hypergamous. That is what basic evolutionary biology has taught us.
This evolutionary psychology is incredible. It has wonderful pieces that can be included that we can look at and then make sense of human behavior.
So you said you're going to debunk the red pill. Then you just said that you basically agree with what is the red pill. Again, that leads me to believe that all you're doing is what you call the red pill is only the pickup artist community. And you were going to criticize all red pill men as being part of the pickup artist community and smear pickup artists as being manipulative. And, you know, in his podcast he did with Jamie Henshaw, he said pickup artists the tactics they use are arguably assault, which is just garbage. You can believe what they're doing is immoral all you want. The fact is, what they do does not work unless there are women willing to consent to it.
It can include different mating strategies, bonding strategies, all kinds of things. I've done plenty of information here on this channel about how men or women are different, how we've evolved, and how we can embrace that. The red pill also takes some pickup tactics that were popular in the 90s and the early 2000s and teaches men some basic attraction strategies that especially work best on insecure women who crave approval from men with daddy issues. Again, it targets...
And it only works if there is a large enough segment in society of women that have daddy issues. Should we maybe look into the fact, why do we have so many women in society today with daddy issues? Could it have anything to do with the state's deliberate breaking down of the nuclear family through through no-fault divorce, through feminist curriculum in public schools, through the fact that that family law and the courts do everything they can to reward women for their hypergamy while punishing men for their polygamy? I mean, come on.
Women who are weak and hurting from the very beginning. What do you call that when an animal does that in the wild? Oh, yeah, predator. At this point, though, Red Pill goes way off the rails and tries to claim that women evolved to be sexual livestock for men who are incapable of most mental functioning and who need to be handled accordingly.
That is not what the Red Pill teaches. Again, now, are men on a biological level attracted to women because they want to have as many offspring as possible, thereby allowing them to have... As the more offspring they have with the more women, the greater the chances their genes are passed on to the next generation? Absolutely. But again, we're not saying all men and all women always act this way under any set of circumstances. Go back to my example. The married man who's loyal to his wife and children sees a beautiful woman in a bikini. On a primal level, he feels an immediate desire to have sex with that woman. That can't be stopped. That's part of his biology. What decision does he make? Well, that depends on him as an individual. It depends on his beliefs about morality. And further, it depends on the kind of consequences he will face if he does that, which in a state of nature tend to work out well for everyone. But when government uses force to start messing with that, that's when we start to get problems.
Use terms like hypergamy to say that every woman at every moment is just waiting to trade up to another man and will betray her current mate for the smallest reason. $5 to stab your husband in the throat. Yeah, I'll do it. Without any sense of loyalty or love in any way, shape, or form.
That is not what hypergamy is, you moron. You say you've studied this for 12 years. What does hypergamy mean? It means that absent moral, legal, and societal restraints, women tend to gravitate towards the highest status man available, both for genetically superior offspring and better safety and provisioning, and given the opportunity, will always inherently seek to transfer her loyalties to a higher status male if one comes along. Now, does that mean she will inevitably, in all circumstances, cheat on her husband, on her boyfriend, if another man comes along? No, just like the example I just gave. Just like the man who sees a beautiful woman and feels that sexual urge doesn't mean he's always going to cheat on his wife. When a woman feels her natural hypergamous drive, it does not mean she always is going to act on that drive. If you have a woman who's been properly raised by a mother and a father, she understands the commitment she's made to her man, how working together with her husband is the best situation for her children. And more importantly, in a society where laws have not been put in place to absolve any of the consequences of her trying to leave her man, in that circumstance, she would be highly likely not to act on her hypergamy because of all the consequences she's going to face. But if through the state we remove those consequences, are you really surprised that more women on average act hypergamously? That is what the red pill is trying to warn men about in this modern society of which we live.
The argument is that this hypergamy evolved in women so they could stab their husband in the back without warning and immediately get more resources from another man.
No, it evolved so that she could get more genetically superior offspring and have better safety and security for herself. Does that necessarily mean she would always stab her current husband in the back? No, that's not inherently part of hypergamy. Could it be the case? I mean, sure.
Does this sound sociopathic? Yeah, it is. This flies in the face of the reality that the majority of marriages which fall apart are attributed to total emotional neglect on the part of the husband against both the wife.
Oh, okay. So here we have this garbage again. He said the same thing in his podcast with Jamie Henshaw. So may I remind you all, at the beginning of this, Adam Lane Smith conceded that there are a lot of risks that the men's rights activists were correct about. Men are, because of no-fault divorce, women initiate divorce at least 70% of the time, 90% of the time or more, if the woman is college educated. If she initiates divorce, it's highly likely she's going to get full custody of your children. She's probably going to get alimony payments and child support payments, the severity of which depend on where you live. It's highly likely that 50% of your assets, there will be a mandatory 50% asset split. She'll get at least half of what you own. With all that in mind, don't worry. The problem is that men are just horrible people. And if husbands are emotionally neglectful of their wives, that is the vast, vast majority of reason why women divorce. So the answer is not get rid of no-fault divorce. The answer is husbands stop being terrible people. I'll let him play a little more, but that's essentially all his argument's going to come down to. And I do apologize, more ads.
The children, usually from his unresolved avoidant attachment, and usually this takes the form of cheating, affairs, all kinds of things that he'll engage in.
Okay, before we started this, I posted a link to an article from the Institute for Family Studies about no-fault divorce. It further links within there. I'm going to link a study found within from the National Library of Medicine that talks about the actual reasons that men and women alike cite for divorce. Apart from what Adam Lane Smith would have you believe, the data is not so clear that the vast, vast majority of women divorce their husbands because they were abusive. That's not actually what the data shows. But again, let's go back here to what marriage actually is. Marriage, at least initially, was seen as a covenant between a man and a woman, commitment of compromise of forced monogamy. A man is sacrificing his natural drive to have sex with multiple women. A woman is sacrificing her natural inclination to try and branch off and transfer her loyalties to a higher status man if a better one comes along, for the good of each other and, more importantly, for the good of their children. As a marriage was intended to be. And thereby, if you understood before you got married that there was no way out, you could not easily divorce, men and women would be much more careful about who they chose, or in fact, as in times past, where a woman's father actually picked her husband for her because he was more likely to be rational about it and not so driven by emotion. That would be why men and women got married. And if there were actual consequences to trying to break that commitment, relationships would not break up quite so easily. Well, in today's day and age, because of no-fault divorce, a woman can divorce you for any reason, and it's no longer, prior to no-fault divorce, if you wanted a divorce, you had to go to court, and the party seeking a divorce had to be able to prove in court that he or she had some kind of just grievance against the other party that had to be proven in court such that you could get out of the marriage. Now, because of no-fault divorce, you can just leave for any reason or no reason whatsoever. Of course, because of feminism, because of the Me Too movement, if a woman claims my husband was abusive, she's going to be unconditionally believed no matter what actually happened. Therefore, men have little to no recourse. So the question I have for Adam Lane Smith, if you really believe that the majority of the time, the only reason women divorce is because their husbands were mistreating them, because their husbands are emotionally neglectful, let me ask you this. Do you think they would still divorce at such higher rates if there weren't so many direct incentives in society for them to do so? If they didn't have guaranteed 50% asset split, guaranteed alimony, guaranteed custody of children, and perhaps most importantly, guaranteed sympathy from a society that will believe any and all claims they make about their husband, do you really think they divorce quite as frivolously as they do?
I saw this myself for years as a marriage and family therapist, and I even wrote a book on the phenomenon. It's right above my head there. Men who have no idea how emotional intimacy works will spend a decade or more telling a woman she's stupid for wanting emotional bonding. As her kids, together with him, get more and more emotionally damaged from their emotionally neglectful father, she blames him and her resentment grows. But he just tells her over and over to shut up, shut up, shut up. There's no fix. Stop what you're doing. Stop complaining. When she finally files for divorce after 10, 15, 20 years, he claims he was totally blindsided. And he takes to the internet to claim he's the only real victim here. And then
Okay, for the sake of argument, let's assume Adam Lane Smith is correct. Again, I'm not conceding that he does. You guys can look to the article from the Institute of Family Studies, look to the study that I've just posted there. You decide for yourselves whether it's really the case that in the vast, vast majority of cases, women always divorce because their husbands were emotionally neglectful. It was because their husband did something wrong. Let's assume that's true. Let's assume that in the vast majority of cases, women only divorce because their husbands did something wrong. Would you therefore tell men, look, just do everything right and you have no fear of this happening? Let's look at this in the reverse. And this is an example I've used before. It's an extreme example, but I think the point stands. Suppose we lived in a society where men had the legal right to execute their wives at any time, and upon doing so, they would receive an immediate $10,000 cash payout from the state. Now, I think in such a circumstance, women would rightly say, whoa, hold on a minute. I do not want to get married if my husband can do that to me at will and I have no recourse. Well, what if when a woman said that, I came back at her and said, well, honey, come on. The only reason I would ever do that is if you were being a bad wife, if you were, neglecting your sexual duties to me, or neglecting your household chores, or neglecting being a good mother to our children. The only reason I would ever execute you is if you were being a bad wife. Therefore, the solution is don't be a bad wife. And if you're afraid of getting married because I might execute you, well, that's a red flag, because it shows you're probably a bad wife. You know you're going to do bad things, and I would execute you for it. I mean, get real. And the same thing is true here. Men, if the power to decide whether or not a man has been emotionally neglectful is solely in the hands of the woman, or in pro-feminist marriage counselors like Adam Lane Smith here, apparently, can you take the risk as a man of getting married on the basis that if I just do everything right and I promise not to be emotionally neglectful, I can guarantee that she will never divorce me, when you really have no power to affect whether or not she divorces you? Is that a risk you're willing to take? And I would say if women are not willing to take the risk, if it's reversed, if the man is the one holding that power, why should men be willing to take that risk?
And she was totally unreasonable. She never even warned me. I told her I was willing to try after 20 years, and she said no. Like I've said, I've written a whole book on this phenomenon. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Exhausted Wives, Bewildered Husbands.
And interestingly enough, read the article I've already posted from the Institute of Family Studies. Divorce rates were significantly lower before no-fault divorce. So, exhausted wife, bewildered husband. Adam Lane Smith, answer this question. All those wives who divorced their husbands because they were emotionally neglectful, whatever that means, and you've explained it, so I'm not going to go into it. Even assuming you're right, do you think they would have been so gung-ho about doing it if they didn't know from the start that, one, they had the ability to do it unilaterally, they did not have to prove in court that they were wrong, if they knew that society would rush to their aid immediately? Oh, sweetie, you poor, poor girl, your husband abused you, right? I mean, should we go to the police? I'm sure, don't worry, you don't have to lie for him. We believe you. Whatever you say, we believe you. And she knew she wants custody of the kids, she's going to get it. She wants alimony, she's going to get it. She wants child support, she's going to get it. She wants this particular asset that belonged to her husband, she's going to get it. If she didn't know that all those things were the case, would she really have been so gung-ho to divorce? And if not, tell me this. Have men and women really changed so much before and after no-fault divorce? If men were really this emotionally neglectful as they before no-fault divorce as prior, why did the divorce rate only rise after no-fault divorce was put in place? Explain that to me.
It's one of the biggest reasons for divorce here in America. Redpill takes parts of the truth and assembles it with insecure attachment problems to create an ideology that encourages sexual slavery and constant fear.
That is just a lie. I've already pointed out even the pickup artists are not advocating sexual slavery. Now, Andrew Tate, I'll give you that. He's currently under investigation from the Romanian government for sex trafficking. So maybe he did actually use force to keep women in sex slavery against their will. I don't know. I'll wait for the evidence to come out. But by and large, most pickup artists even are not advocating that.
This is the harsh truth, and it's time that we talk about it. Now, a lot of guys who subscribe to Red Pill ideology are watching this right now saying, no, that's totally wrong, or Adam doesn't get it, or
yeah, Adam, you don't get it, and I've shown as such. So if you're going to respond, please deal with the points I've brought up.
Or Adam's just pretending everything's fine, and he doesn't get what the world's really like.
Well, isn't that what you just said? Women divorce their husbands almost always because of emotional neglect. Therefore, the solution is not to target no-fault divorce or change the current legal incentive structure. The solution, men, is to get married and not be emotionally neglectful. Again, you're putting all the blame on men and none on women. Are you a feminist? You sure sound like one.
And I get that, guys. I understand. Red Pill guys are not usually evil. They're usually hurting. They're usually very hurt. They've usually grown up without much love, and this is the closest to love or security or safety they have ever felt.
And again, I'll say, I don't really care about psychoanalyzing. Maybe it's the case that most men who accept the red pill have been hurt. That does not, in and of itself, say anything about whether or not the red pill is true. That is, again, the genetic fallacy, identifying how a person comes to believe something, therefore disproves the belief. If the red pill is true, then it's true. If it's false, it's false. And how men, by and large, come to accept that truth is really irrelevant to whether or not it's true.
Totally get it. I really do. And I do not hate men who go into the red pill. I totally understand. That said, the guys who are so into it that they will do anything and hurt anybody and make fun of people and destroy lives of people who don't like it. I've had my channels taken down. I've had all kinds, live streams taken down. All kinds of stuff happen from guys who...
Oh, poor you, poor you. It's not like anyone else on the political right has ever had their channels taken down or live stream taken away or channel demonetized. That's just kind of the totalitarian world we're living in, Adam.
Want to collect women sexually like livestock and protect their cult. I hear you too. Kid, sit down and learn. You grew up with problems, and it's okay to feel hurt, but you cannot live in perpetual fear forever that drives you to hurt other people.
Adam, I don't care why you think people came to accept the red pill. Are you going to refute my two basic contentions? One, men are naturally polygamous, and absent moral, legal, and societal restraints tend to pursue a strategy of having sex with as many women as possible. Women are naturally hypergamous, and absent moral, legal, and societal restraints tend to pursue the highest status man available, both for reproduction and provisioning, while always keeping an eye open to transfer those loyalties to a higher status man if one becomes available. And in light of government intervention in marriage, in the family, in the courts, female hypergamy, the natural consequences have been removed. Male polygamy, the natural consequences have been amplified. Have you at all refuted anything? No. As a matter of fact, you said you more or less agree with the evolutionary psychology behind it. And early on, you said that there are, in fact, big risks for men, and the men's rights activists were largely right. So why then are you saying that you reject the red pill? You more or less accept it. It seems the only thing I really get out of your video so far is you as a man need to learn the proper psychology behind attachment, and then you just need to get married and not be emotionally neglective. Again, placing all the blame for failed marriages on the man. Thank you, feminist.
You cannot use that fear to seize control of others through their wounds. Not on my watch. Now, here's what the red pill...
Now, you can argue... Now, Adam, you may say that's wrong, and maybe it is. Bottom line is that it's not happening without a segment of the female population that actually agrees to this. Without a large enough segment of the female population willing to have premarital sex with men they've just met, there would be no pickup artists. So what, maybe point the finger back at the people who are actually the root cause of this, and that is loose women who are willing to have premarital sex with men they just met. If there were those, there would be no pickup artists.
Misses. And here's how the rest of you can avoid this trap. Men who fall for the red pill, they don't start with secure attachment style. Most of them are from families where they never learned how to give or receive love in safety. Maybe they had a single mom who didn't meet their needs, or a weak father who let an overbearing mother drive everyone into the ground. A lot of them were abused by mom as a kid, and now they try to get control over women just to feel safe. Others are just terrified of women and they don't want to be alone, but they can't get a date to save their lives because women smell their fear and avoid them. And frankly, they're in the wrong dating pool because they're dating broken women who want people who will control and hurt them. It's an ugly system. The dating pool, at least the broken one, is really ugly right now. Women are confused, men are confused, and there's an estimated 2/3 of people who have attachment issues now.
Thanks to what? Couldn't have anything to do with the lack of nuclear families, the fact that government has disincentivized marriage, that people by and large are being raised by single parents, mostly single mothers. Could that have something to do with it? And if so, why are you not advocating against getting the government out of marriage and letting the natural state of marriage work with male and female nature coming together as nature intended?
According to the updated research, the answer is not to embrace attachment problems and become the aggressor. It's to solve your attachment problems and shift from that broken dating pool into the healthy one, where more loving women are looking for a husband to commit to and build a life with. The truth is that most women, even the insecure ones, are looking for love. Most of them cling to the first man they meet and they try to make it work at any cost. We know this through the sheer number of women who stay with domestic abusers or who hold on to dying marriages well past the point of hope.
Okay, why do you think that is, Adam? Again, women make bad decisions and choose bad men. Why? Couldn't have anything to do with their natural hypergamous nature, could it? Could it be that they value certain things, that they're picking men for the wrong reasons and facing the consequences?
Women are the most likely to purchase relationship improvement courses or to seek out help to fix their relationships. They're the most likely to suggest couples therapy or to do their own therapy to be a better partner. My emails and my DMs are flooded with women begging for help to make a relationship work with men who clearly don't love them in the least, but these women are determined to keep him.
Why? Are you criticizing these women at all? Are you? Because apparently it doesn't sound like it.
And it's not because these guys are the cream of the crop. They're not billionaires with 12-pack abs. Most of them are barely functioning losers who offer a middling lifestyle at best.
And whatever they're offering women, it's enough for these women to decide it's what's best for them. Again, women are individuals capable of making their own choices. If women are picking men that you, Adam, perceive to be losers, they bear the responsibility for that.
These women are utterly devoted to them. The truth is that women aren't really the faithless monsters that red pill ideology simplifies all of them down to.
And no one is saying women are faithless monsters. Again, I'll use the example. Men who see beautiful women feel an innate desire to have sex with them. Women who see high status men that they perceive to be high status for whatever reason, innately feel the desire to leave their current man and transfer their loyalties to higher status men. It does not mean under all circumstances, every individual will do this. What it means is that nature is there and you need to understand it. And when government gets involved and removes the consequences of a woman's natural hypergamous nature, we shouldn't be surprised that she does it often.
Not any more than all men are saints, like the red pill seems to claim. The red pill is really
And we're not saying all men are saints either. I think pickup artists are generally sleazy individuals. Nonetheless, their tactics only work if there is a large enough segment of the female population willing to have premarital sex.
a black pill, a fear pill, an obsession with control so that the adherents never have to do the hard work of healing their childhood pain and learning to selectively trust the right people. Now, instead of giving into this fear, fix your attachment, get secure, learn the trust levels, the 4 levels of trust, and how to select the right people to open up with.
Okay, let's see. He's going to talk about, again, at the end of the day, I'm not here to tell any individual what they should or shouldn't do. What I'm saying is, especially to men out there, this is the reality of male and female nature. And government has screwed with it such as to make marriage a raw deal for men. If you choose to get married, you are going to take on quite a bit of risk. If you want to get married, understand this, do a risk assessment on the woman that you're thinking about marrying and ask, is it worth the risk? I'm gonna argue that in most cases in modern society today, the answer is no, but that's a decision only you can make. Now, could this Adam Lane Smith guy have, resources that can help you understand yourself better as an individual and help vet people properly? I don't know. Pay him $500 and find out.
Connect with the healthier dating pool of women who will love you unreservedly and work with you to build.
I'd love for him to explain where the dating pool of these awesome women are. I mean, I would like to hear that. Maybe you have to pay him $500 to hear that.
Life together. When you do this, you can build a life with a woman you trust and who trusts you.
But are you going to address no-fault divorce? Are you going to address those issues? No, you're just going to say, do everything right and she won't divorce you. That's not a risk I'm willing to take, and no one should take that risk.
You'll be faithful, loyal, and loving. You can be fully yourself, and you can chase your mission with a companion who acts as the wind at your back. I've experienced this sort of incredible marriage for 15 years now, and I know it's possible. And I happen to know that one of the biggest leaders in the Red Pill community, who wrote one of the big defining books, has been married for a long time too, even though he tells men, never get married. Women are not capable of love like men are. He's married himself. What does that tell you? Guys, fear.
I think he's referring to Rollo Tomasi there. Fair enough. Criticize Rollo for that, but and I have a lot of criticisms of Rollo either. But again, does that prove the Red Pill's false? If he's married, then maybe he's a hypocrite. Does that prove he's wrong? The fact that someone is a hypocrite, no one should respect a hypocrite. That's true. But strictly speaking, just because someone is a hypocrite doesn't mean that what they said is otherwise false.
Is not the answer. Knowledge is the answer. The truth is the answer.
I would agree, and I've yet to see you refute the truth of the Red Pill.
Learn how to filter women correctly for health and danger, just like they filter you, and fix your own problems that led you into this dark place.
And understand the risks of current family law that government has screwed up.
Learn from the proper dating methods that have worked for 200,000 years of human mating. There are answers, and the Red Pill is not it. I have helped so many men through their Red Pill detox phase. I will be happy to help you. Drop me a comment below if you want
for the right price. Remember, $500 for his dating course.
Help, and I will share some free resources with
you. All right, we'll go ahead and end that there. Now, again, I'll ask the question. The Red Pill is simply, men are naturally polygamous and absent moral, legal, and societal restraints, tend to pursue whatever strategy allows them to have sex with the most women. Women are naturally hypergamous, absent moral, legal, and societal restraints, tend to pursue the highest status man available, both for reproduction and provisioning, while always keeping an eye open to transfer her loyalties to a higher status male if one becomes available. And in an unregulated state of nature, there are consequences to pursuing these strategies. As a result, the natural result is for compromised monogamy. One man and one woman come together, choosing to have children together for the good of each other and for the good of their children. But when the government messes with this and tries to remove the natural consequences for a woman pursuing her hypergamy, we shouldn't be surprised that we get more women behaving hypergamously to the detriment of marriage, to the detriment of men, and more importantly, to the detriment of children who are then raised by single mothers to be dysfunctional adults and who vote for bigger government who take more of our freedoms away. So you tell me, has Adam Lane Smith debunked the Red Pill, or has he just set up a video there that encourages you to spend $500 on his online dating course? You make the decision. Now, before I go, I do want to address this comment by JC Armitage. He says, I don't think you can criticize someone using the genetic fallacy when your entire description of the Red Pill is a giant appeal to nature fallacy. Now, I'm going to have to disagree with you there, JC Armitage. The appeal to nature fallacy is basically to say if something is natural, it is therefore good. And that is not what I've said here. I have not said that a man's polygamous nature is inherently good, or that a female's natural hypergamous nature is inherently good either. Strictly speaking, that's neither good or bad. That's just the way it is. Now, I happen to think men should not indiscriminately pursue sex with as many women as possible. I happen to think women should not cheat on their husbands and try to transfer their loyalty to a higher status man whenever he comes along. That is, I believe, on a moral level, that's wrong. And I believe that it's bad for society and it's bad for children. But that doesn't change the fact that that's the way it is. So no, this is not a appeal to nature fallacy. The appeal to nature fallacy would be if I was saying that it's therefore good. It's not. The genetic fallacy, on the other hand, is identifying how a person comes to believe something, saying a belief is false because by identifying how a person comes to believe something. And that is what Adam Lane Smith was doing there. And to Finite, he says, get laid, please. My answer to that, if you think anything I've said here is incorrect, please explain why. And let me ask you this question. If you think I'm wrong, if I provided proof that I have in fact had sex, would you suddenly accept everything I've said here? Answer that question. Well, I'm not going to stick around and wait for him to answer, but I think you all get the point. If what I've said here is true, it's true regardless of whether or not I've ever had sex. So if you think calling me an incel is going to refute all this, come on. You do what you will. Adam Lane Smith, if you would like to come on my show and debate this, I'd be happy to do that. I somehow doubt he will, but I did tweet this out to his actual Twitter handle. I believe he's called at the Prometheus. So if anyone else wants to encourage him to try and debate me, I would love to do that. For now, I will see you guys again next week. And as always, that is my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth.